Hey guys, we're about to rock some madness, making sure everything is cool before we start our interview at 11. Um, got Mr. We got Mr. Dereck Higgins today, um, and he should be coming up soon. Yeah. What's up, world leader, Mr. Jared Hassan? How are you, brother? We're gonna get you in on one of these hopefully soon. And we'll definitely talk, man. It'd be rad to have you on. Let me see where Mr. Higgins is. Yes. Oh wow, this thing is trip. I'm gonna try to send Dereck Higgins another one. Okay, let's see what's going on. Sorry guys, we're almost there. Okay. Yes. What's up? Mr. Higgins is here. Here we go. Uh-oh.
Okay, the
Uh-oh.
deal is, one second here.
Word.
One second here. One second.
Most
I'll
deaf.
be right back. One second. What I want to do is get this on my computer, really.
There we
So
go.
well, the deal is, can I answer this on my computer?
Man, I've only done this over the phone. I think Mark Edwards did it on his computer. I don't know how he did it because I'm so used to
Well,
using this on my phone.
check it out. I'm calling you right now. Are you getting the call?
Nah, not at all. I could
Okay,
only
we'll do it like this. We'll do it like this then. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, all right. Let me set my phone so I can get comfortable. Okay, that's the deal. Is I'm using my. Okay,
we
I'm here. I'm here. I'm
we
here.
got our brother Michael Conway here, like in the
Hey,
audience too.
what's up, Michael? What's up, Michael?
Man. Well, let me introduce a brother, man. I'm so honored to do this. I know we talked about this a few years ago, but man,
Yeah.
I'm like elated. Man,
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Orlando.
yes. Even though we've been talking for decades online. Um, we got Dereck Higgins. Dereck Higgins is a musician, record collector, mental health specialist, record label owner, has been on Adult Swim with his Higgins Corner, and we got Higgins Corner right here, right now. Has been in bands like Digital Sex, R.A.F, uh, Norman and the Rockwells. I mean, dude, and we have a lot of mutual friends, man. Dereck is so diverse. This brother will play, Cajun music, blues, but he'll play the most avant-garde, like just crazy, like noise rock and progressive rock type stuff too. Played in punk bands, been active since the 1970s. Correct me if I'm wrong. And we're gonna talk about all that right now, man. I really appreciate you being here. Black History of
Thank
Rock
you.
and Roll Month.
Well, I'm glad to be here and glad to be, with you, Orlando. You have an illustrious background yourself, my friend.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So here we are, carrying on.
Man, one of the first questions I have to ask, I feel like even researching you and talking to you that we have a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
one of the things is growing up, Sorry about that. Gro-
Yeah, I'm
growing up
getting my
in a
light. I'm
growing,
getting my light together, huh?
oh yeah, man, I'm like my light's kind of weird too. Growing up in a musical family, man. So
Hmm. Hmm.
if you'd like, give us a history on that, man. And I love hearing the stories about even the jazz legends that you've met as a kid. You know, like if you could like expound on that, like that'd be awesome.
Well, I feel, I do feel quite blessed to be in the family line that I'm in. Both sides of my family are some pretty cool people. Higgins and Johnson. My dad's name is Higgins. But my parents met as young musicians, and they went out on the road together. But my uncles also, okay? So, like, my dad and my mom, they were on the road, and they were touring, and they were, like, doing gigs, like, along with bands like Lionel Hampton, and I think his name was Ray Nance. And so they were just they were in the middle of all that happening, and when when I was born and my brothers and sisters in the 50s, they were still young, and my dad was still playing, but my mom, she lost her hearing like in 1958. So I remember growing up with a lot of jam sessions and crazy musicians at the house, and my dad was a record collector like me. Like I said, I mean, we had everyone from um, T-Bone Walker to Dexter Gordon, Johnny Griffin, seriously, John Coltrane
Wow.
stopped by the house. Johnny Otis, Preston Love. Yeah, I grew up around these people. Earl Baza Hines, I can't even remember some of these people. Like, I don't remember Clark Terry, for example, but I understand he was tight with my dad and Dizzy Gillespie.
Oh man.
So that's just that. But then there's also my uncles as well. They were musicians, but unfortunately they were alcoholics, so their careers ended early. But one thing I'll mention is that my uncle Harry had a group that toured with the Duke Ellington Orchestra as as the opening act.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Now you got stuff like that too, though, right, Orlando?
Yeah, I mean, my mom's side, we're my mom's my grandma's cousin is Little Richard. It's crazy.
Oh,
I've never met him. I've never
is that
met him,
right?
but like my mom and my uncles have talked about him. They've told me,
Hmm.
that and only like my uncles, like I've only had a few family members that I know that have actually met him. I wish
Hmm.
that I could have met him, but
Yeah.
that's my background. And my father too. My father, um, he was in like different groups, and he played even in a group with Gloria Jones.
Nice. Yeah,
Tainted
I know
Love,
who she
Gloria
is.
Jones.
I sure do know
And
who she is. Yeah.
yeah, so he was in a group with her, and him and my mom had a group, and they were very interesting. Like they people would probably label them gospel because of their lyrics, but they were kind of
Hmm.
on like some like imagine Sade meets Shaka Khan meets Joan Armatradin and jazz fusion. They were all over the place, just music
Okay.
wise. So
Okay.
I had that background growing up, like
Right.
just and like my father and I always talked about like everything from like like Funkadelic to
Hmm.
freaking like Jimmy and Emerson Lake and Palmer and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, that explains your diversity then, huh?
yeah, man.
Cool.
Speaking of diversity, I have
Hmm.
to ask, man. I know you're known for your bass playing. You kill on bass. What
Thank you,
other
sir.
instruments did you play? Not only that, when did you start playing, and what got you in the playing? I'm assuming what we just talked about, but I want to hear it from you.
Well, yeah, growing up and seeing my dad jam quite a bit, I was fascinated with the instruments, and I was even though my dad was a handful, as parents can be, because of drugs and stuff, I really admired him a lot. And so as a small child, first started out wanting to try to play the trumpet. That was my dad's first instrument. And I probably started out trying to do that around 7 or 8. And okay, see, now I'm really bad with timelines. So let me put it like this. My dad was my first inspiration. Tried to play the horn, but it didn't work. We went to flute, that didn't work. I ended up on French horn in school, okay? But let's back up. to, was it 63 or 64 when the Beatles played on Ed Sullivan?
64.
That was a cosmic, yeah, that was a cosmic moment for, everyone. That changed my life, My older sister, too, we were just, when they said the Beatles and the kids screamed on TV, we screamed here in Omaha, And, I barely understood what it was I was taking in, but I was transfixed by, it was a whole new way of seeing and hearing music for me. So number one inspiration were my parents, my dad, also my uncles, I'll include them, but the Beatles, seeing the Beatles. Oh, actually, Orlando, let me tell you the truth. Actually, before the Beatles, my parents told me that when I was in the crib rocking, whenever they played the Everly Brothers or Chuck Berry, I would go nuts, okay? But the first record that I owned that was given to me by my uncle was Little Richard's album. And
Wow.
that blew my mind, Orlando. That it was over after I heard Little Richard.
Wow.
It was like, good God Almighty. And
Wow.
here I am talking to his blood. Check this out.
The irony, that's crazy, man.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. But the Beatles really opened my mind. Now, see, I was raised in a mixed neighborhood where it was mostly white here in Omaha. So, and my dad did that on purpose. My dad was light-skinned, red-headed, and he could pass for white when he was young, okay? There's stories about that. But anyway, he wanted us kids to really see what life could be like. And so, as a kid, I didn't want to be white. I wanted everything the white kids had. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why can't I have that?
Yeah.
And so, when the Beatles came along, and they were so obviously influenced by Little Richard and black music, plus their stance about being inclusive, it was like, this is my music. Rock music, the music of the world is mine.
Yep. And that's why I do what I do. I mean, coming from a background where, like just growing up with rock and roll, I was, of course, being a kid born in the 70s and in the 80s, I got into new wave and hip hop too. For me,
Yeah.
they all connect. And it's just, when I got into playing music, I definitely got more into rock and roll, but even more of the experimental stuff and stuff that was around either when I was born or before I was born, like especially psych and prog, and I want to definitely touch on that later. But the thing is, dude, like that, it's our music, and that's why I do this page, because people think we're so apart and alien from it, which is not the case. I'm glad my father and my mom never discouraged me from that. Even when the outside world did, they cultivated it. And also I did my own research. This is not alien from us. I don't care what people say when it comes to even punk rock and more extreme metals. That still has its root in what we started.
Yeah, it's very black. It's very black.
Otherwise, we'd have classical and the most pristine classical, or, some of that Appalachian folk music, which even some would say was influenced by, even us too. Well, at least rockabilly, I could say that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's universal. Hey, before I forget, are you in the Afro-Punk documentary?
No, but it's funny. I have friends that are in that, but I was a part of one of the earlier online communities and we still exist. Jared as well. Like, that's how I met Jared Hassan, who's on here, Mr. World Eater, studio production, shout out. And that movie, I have friends in that movie, but like the cool part about that is just the community that it made. Dude, yeah, man, it's a great movie. Shouts to James Spooner. But yeah.
When I finally saw it when he brought it to Omaha on tour, and when I met him and talked, he admitted he didn't know about me, and he said, "You should have been in the movie."
Yeah, you definitely should have. I mean, I was gonna get to this later, but since we're on the subject, and I'm probably gonna go backwards to get another topic before I talk about punk rock. I mean, yeah, we'll just talk about punk rock. I really want to talk about the progressive rock stuff first.
Whatever, really. Yeah, whatever,
But to piggyback on what you're saying, you don't really hear about Nebraska when it comes to punk rock, whether it be the earlier scene or like the hardcore stuff, which you've been involved in both.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cool. I'm from Los Angeles, so of course I know about that scene because I'm from that.
Right.
I have friends in New York, and of course you hear about Los Angeles and New York. You'll hear about Detroit here and there, mostly the earlier stuff, but mostly it's
Yeah.
Los Angeles, New York, and the UK.
Yeah.
But you don't hear anything about Midwest, especially Nebraska. You're the first one that I think I've even met that was not only representing that scene, but also was a great innovator of that particular scene.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, all I can say is that, because of my interest in all kinds of music, I basically became aware of, street level underground music early on as a teen, and started going to shows and even to bars to see bands before I was legally able to. And also I have to credit my dad because he, even though he's a jazz musician, he crossed over and was meeting and playing with rock musicians as well. And
Wow.
so, yeah, and so even before the New York scene and the Sex Pistols and all that, I was aware of aggressive street level music, starting with MC5, Iggy Pop, and then, regional bands. LA Carnival was considered a soul band here in Omaha, but they had some hard rock roots, and when we saw them play live, they would get pretty radical. And so I was exposed to the idea that black people are involved in all aspects of not just the commercial from far back. The thing that got me to start a punk band, honestly, was when the Ramones came to Omaha, like for a lot of people. They came here, I think, in '78 for the first time, and it was unreal. I had never experienced anything like that before.
Wow.
It was like the bomb, and it exploded. And just like a lot of other people, I started a band probably the next day or a couple of days later. It was like I was transformed,
Wow.
I got to hang out with all the Ramones, too, eventually, too. I got to hang out with all of them. Yeah.
Man, rest in peace to all of most of the ones that, well, there's other Ramones, but yeah, rest in peace to all the ones that passed. But man, how was the early Omaha punk scene? It's amazing. It's amazing. I saw the thing on Chicago was interesting, although I was upset that they didn't feature Jim Skafish as much as they should have. I noticed a lot of the earlier punk, and I know a lot of people that from LA that were a part of that early punk scene in LA too, like the Mask. I had the honor of playing with one of the Mask bands, the Deadbeats. Scott Gurin, shouts to his cousin Carrie.
Kill the hippies! Kill the hippies! Kill the hippies!
Yeah. I played one show with those guys, him and Paul Roslin, and that was really cool because, like, I mean, those guys were one of those bands from back in the day that, dude, punk was not received well. Even when I got into it, which was years late, a decade and a half later, it still was like kind of different. But you guys had a lot to deal with. Like, how was the early punk scene in Omaha? I can only imagine it being black and being punk.
Well, I was the only one for a long time.
Wow.
And it was totally the scene of outsiders. And now my background as far as work is in mental health. I worked in the hospitals, psych hospitals. And I was meeting the kids from the scene in the hospital working, with them as patients, okay? So it's interesting that in the early 80s, when it all exploded, I had gone from working at a children's home into working at psych units. And it was right about the same time that bands started to do the touring, like Black Flag, and those bands started to come through, okay? And I just went to all the shows, and the audience was basically these outsider kids, a lot of them that were in and out of the mental hospitals. There were Hispanic kids. There weren't any other black kids. There's one after a while, but at first I was the only one. And almost because of my background in the hospital, I early on became kind of a protector of the scene, kind of like a dad figure, Everybody else is running around fucking everybody. I'm just trying to make sure everybody is okay and gets home okay. You know what I'm
Not
saying?
knock their head into the street.
Right, right. And then there was a because I'm in the Midwest, there's heavy racism here. And so early on there was a skinhead contingent that we had to deal with, okay? And but I dealt with that, and helped to mend some fences there and got to the point where the skinheads befriended me. Do you know the New York band Warzone?
Yeah, Rabies, right? That's his band. Rest in peace.
Yeah, they played here one time, and the bass player at the time, schizophrenic, was having a tough night, and they didn't think he could do the show. People knew my rep, and so they got me to counsel him, okay, so they could do the show.
Wow.
Anyway, at the show, we're starting to do the mosh pit, and here comes this contingent of skinheads who don't know me. They stopped the show to defend me and kick the skinheads out. It was pretty cool.
Wow. Jared says, or World Leader says, New York says I know them very well. Yeah, he's from New York. Jared is from New York, so he knows Rabies too and
Hey, Jared, what's
Warzone.
up? All right,
That's
what's up?
good. Man. That's
Yeah.
Rabies. Also, shouts to Rabies for playing that blast beat on the early Agnostic Front.
hmm Yeah, same deal with Agnostic Front. I saw those guys, and they rallied around me because at that show, GBH, at the time, Jock, was still racist and
Oh
was
wow.
shitty to me. And, well, everybody saw it, and they said, hey, what's up? Even Collins said, what's up with this bullshit, And Agnostic Front jumped to my defense. We didn't have to come to blows, but they put Jock in his place. But check it out. Probably about 5 years ago, GBH came through Omaha again, but this time my band R.A.F. we opened for them,
Oh
and
wow.
so um, after our set, I went up to Jock and I said, "Hey man, do you remember me by chance?" And he said, "Oh shit, yeah. I just gotta say, that changed me." He said that was one thing that helped change me. I got pictures of us now. He was very gracious. So yeah, I'm proud of my history. I'm proud to be part of the history of rock and of punk. I wish I could have played out in LA back in those days.
Man. Well, RAF, Ready, Aim, Fire. You said that was one
No,
of your
no, no,
bases,
no, no,
right?
no, 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 no. It stands for really are fucked.
Here I am getting the PG version. I didn't know. I didn't know that.
We really are fucked.
Wow.
That's what it's about, baby. Okay. When the band first started, that's what it meant was Ready Aim Fire. By the time I joined, it was like, oh no, we're talking about how things are. Reagan years, we were
Oh
fucked.
crap. Yeah, that dude, man. It's funny. I was a kid. One of the things that I bring this up, especially being from like Los Angeles County,
Mhm.
this guy, his wife had a program called Dare, but this
Yes,
guy had
yes,
something to do with that whole funding the whole drug thing with the Contras and all that. Like it's just wow, the things you find out later. It's just like what kind of masks are people wearing?
man, man,
Like
here in Omaha, we were getting bricks of hash with the U.S. government stamps on it.
whoa,
That ain't no lie. That ain't no lie.
no, that's messed up. That's proof. I mean, I've heard stories about people talking about guns being left at certain places. That's fueling all that, man. That comes from the higher up. Nobody in the hood could just afford that. And I
Right,
mean, from what I know, like it
right,
seems like it, but yeah,
right.
that's and what you just said just says everything. Like man. So I have to ask this, and it's amazing because I've befriended punks that are around your age, and it's amazing how I know that there's a narrative to punk that 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 basically it was anti-prog because of what the media and all that, and just
hmm
it wasn't as simple. But I
hmm
noticed there's a lot of punks or people that were playing in punk bands in the 70s and early 80s that were actually into prog. Like Don Bolton's one of them. Me and him talk about King Crimson. You know, Scott Gurin from the Deadbeats is another one. I've kicked it with him playing. You know, he's playing me his rare prog albums and stuff. You know, like there's so. Would you say, like, as far as like when you got into even like Norman and the Rockwells, I noticed like, to me that's punk or new wave, or you know, Zolo is what people then call it, shouts to Sharky. Like when you even formed that band, like did you see it just doesn't seem that every punk, like, you know, abandoned the whole prog thing. I could understand like that hierarchy when it comes to music, kind of like what hip hop did to certain things with elements of R&B, disco, and funk, but it just brought it down the basis, and people made their own thing. I mean, you look at Magazine, you look at The Fall, Perry Ubu, you can hear prog in that, you know?
Right. So what was going on with me regarding that, Orlando, was that as I embraced punk, I was obviously already listening to all kinds of music, a lot of prog, and I saw the schism where on the surface in the media they're talking about, you know, we're against the old guard, when in secret we're all still listening to old guard, and it all came out over time. So from my perspective, you know, I dealt with that at first with a bit of discomfort because of the way, the perception of new kids getting into punk and rejecting the past. But as time went on, and you could see, well, nothing's changed. People's record collection is still the same, as you mentioned. Well, even Johnny Lydon, Vandergraaf Generator fan.
Man,
it became more of me educating. You know, it's like rather than hiding it, it was like, okay, y'all need to hear this music. Okay, it's like, you know, I love the fact of punk bringing back music back to the people. You only need to learn one or two chords, and you can make, or even no chords, but you can get up and make a noise. I love that. But I also was really into the idea that, okay, so let's find out about what was good, because all you ever heard about was what was on the radio and what Big Brother in the Midwest was talking about, which was real bland, you know. And so over the years, you know, I've been very happy to turn a lot of punks onto shit like Faust and Noi, you know, and Throbbing Gristle, you know, and stuff like that. Yeah,
those bands that you named, they're punk in their own right. I mean, you listen to Faust, it's like listening to some British post-punk, and just like, dude, you could hear the parallels between them and, like, you know, early Wire or The Fall, and it's amazing. There's even bands that, like the Residents or the Styrenes or you know, De Belmenthal, you know, all these bands that were kind of, they couldn't fit, even though prog rock guys liked them, and then they were really accepted in punk, even though some people now wouldn't call them punk, but they were punk seemed like more of an avant-garde movement.
Underground was the word I used to use. Now, did you know that Faust punked the music industry? Did you know that?
Nah, I gotta hear this story.
Their manager, who got them the contract, the big contract with Polydor Records, hyped them as the German Beatles, and they bought it. And then they heard, then when they got the album, they said, "What the fuck is this shit?"
Those guys are. I think of them as total I mean, like iconoclast in a way. Yeah, they had their complexities, but they had their things where they were just doing whatever they did. They're a very underrated band, man. You know,
they're a huge influence on me personally. Huge influence.
Man. There's a band there. I think they were named after. Plastic People of the Universe is another band that. Those guys, I mean, from what I read, they were put in jail for playing the stuff that they did.
They were imprisoned, and I'm sorry to say I don't have that album anymore. I got the record when I read about it. I don't have it anymore, but Plastic People, yeah.
Man, so here's a question.
Sure.
You know, since we're on the prog thing, I might as well. I have like two questions coming into my head at the same time. Prog bands. I'm a progressive rock fan too. We're rare, especially amongst us brothers. There's more than I've been meeting lately, but I have to ask, like, who were some of your favorite progressive rock bands aside from Faust, of course? You know.
Well, it all started to me with the Beatles. The Beatles went prog with Sgt. Pepper's, you know, and
That's
then
right.
the next thing that I heard that literally saved my life was the Moody Blues when they did Days of Future Past.
Mm,
Okay, now to me that is orchestral, but that is so progressive. Okay, then the
yes.
next thing, that I heard that was definitely blowing the doors off was when the first King Crimson album came out. Now the deal was, I didn't even hear it before I would just see it in the record shops, and that cover, because I was poor. I couldn't afford hardly any records, so I would just look at it and just like, what the fuck is this? What? I remember
That's
one time. I
right.
remember one time I used to be pretty good at stealing records. I'm just be honest, okay? And one day I was out at one day I was scoping it. I was saying, I'm gonna get this King Crimson today, and I couldn't get it.
Man.
But I got the single in the Court of the Crimson King, part 1 and 2. So those are the beginnings. But I also recognized before that Dave Clark 5, how they were jazzy. Okay, so it goes back for me that far because of my, and I give credit to both my parents, mainly my dad, being a musician, who would take the time and listen to what we were listening to, and he would point out, well, that's good music, that's garbage there. You know, it don't mean that you can't listen to it, but he would point out when music is making. So, for example, my dad hated the Beatles at first, mainly because of what it was doing to other, older musicians, putting them out of business,
Wow.
But when they put out Yesterday, my dad said, okay, these motherfuckers can play, that's, what I'm saying? He had to give it up after that. So my dad was a good guide in just recognizing real music from the get-go. You know what I mean?
Man, that's so cool, man. It's always, man, it's like my father the same, like just like man, he tripped out when I was, because this is like the mid 80s. I was getting into like stuff that he grew up on, like in the 60s and 70s. And like, he was like, wait, how are you? Because I would be in the library. I'm probably about
Mm-hmm.
10,
Mm-hmm.
11, 12, preteen, at the
Mm-hmm.
library for hours reading about
Mm-hmm.
bands that I didn't even hear
Mm-hmm.
until years later, like Hawkwind, like,
Right,
and
right, right.
my father's tripping out, like, how do you know all this stuff? And so he's all, since you know that, let me
Mm-hmm.
turn you on to this. Dude, the first time I heard Led Zeppelin was on the 405 freeway. My dad turned on Heartbreaker and turned it up. So it's
Okay,
like, you
Dad
know,
took care of business. So, for, similarly, what was one of the first bands, or who were some of the first bands that really excited you of
well,
any genre?
Jimmy was the first. I mean, my father, of course, my mom, but as far as like artists, Jimi
Mm-hmm.
Hendrix is the one that got me. Like, I felt like he was my Uncle Sam moment when I saw him as a 10-year-old kid on TV in the mid
Mm-hmm.
'80s.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, I want to do that.
Yes,
Then I
exactly.
couldn't,
Absolutely.
I couldn't. There was no guitar in orchestra class, so my dad's like, "Why don't you play bass?" And I'm like, "That thing's too big. I'm shorter and skinnier than I am now."
Mm-hmm.
Back then, and so once I picked it up, it's funny. I remember the first bass line. I played Eric Burden and the Animals Monterey. I was really in the 60s and 70s music even then. Like, this is
Great
all like
song.
junior high, I'm like 12 years old. But then I got
Mm-hmm.
into Yes, believe it or not. Like, Chris
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Squire is a
yeah,
huge influence on me.
yeah.
Then King Crimson, John Wetton, when he was in that band, and
Mm-hmm.
early Genesis. And then, of
Yeah,
course, getting into hardcore. Love Bad Brains, love Dead Kennedys. Um, man, so many. A band called Scattered Few from Los Angeles, which was like, imagine bands like Magazine and Bad Brains and
yeah,
Bauhaus all mixed together.
yeah,
Bowie.
yeah, 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 yeah. You got up on the good foot. You got up on the
Yeah.
good foot. Yeah, that's one of our legendary shows was when we played with Dead Kennedys here in Omaha in the 80s, and we blew them off the stage.
Wow.
Jello Biafra told us that. Jello Biafra told us, he said, that never happens. What the fuck's going on here in Omaha? When we got done, he said, this never happens. We blew him off the stage. We did.
Man, that's a trip, man. That's so awesome. Was it through with R.A.F or Digital Sex?
R.A.F. Digital Sex was more of a new wave band that I started, inspired by Wire and Joy Division. And that was just a little bit before R.A.F. And then for a time I was doing both at the same time.
Man, I like that's the thing about stuff that I've heard from you, whether it's Norman and the Rockwells, whether it's Digital Sex, whether it's rap, it's always so different and diverse, and it shows
Thank
just
you.
your palette of music and all the other
Thank
stuff
you.
that I've heard too.
Yeah.
I'm curious about Norman and the Rockwells. What
Sure.
was the what
Sure.
was that all about? I liked what I heard. Like,
Thank you. Thank you. You know what's funny about that was really not that long after high school, and somehow, okay, it was because I was in this hard rock band called Full Clip that morphed from hard rock like Ted Nugent, Bob Seger, Aerosmith into doing Devo and the Ramones. After we got a new guitar player, and that guitar player, when Full Clip broke up, was part of this clique, this Catholic high school, and they had this thing going where they would do music for these big like retreats and for mass and shit. And so anyway, I met those guys and we vibed, and it just morphed into Norman and the Rockwells from being this band that would play at Catholic masses. And the deal was they were way into Todd Rundgren and a little bit into Frank Zappa. But when I came on board with John and could hear how good they played, they said, well, let's just go for it. Let's play whatever we want. So we started playing Frank Zappa, Devo. I can remember some of the other Gruppo Sportivo, and then we started writing our own stuff. That was right before Digital Sex. That moved me from that into Digital Sex.
yeah, I could hear like even with Norman and the Rockwells, it reminds me of like prog. I called it prog punk, and now people are calling stuff like that Zolo, Sharky's Fault.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We were like
Another
Omaha's
thing.
Oingo Boingo, Oingo Boingo.
Oh
We were like,
yeah, that's a good description.
yeah,
With Digital Sex, I have to ask you this.
yeah.
It's interesting. Like, I love what I heard, but one thing about Digital Sex that most people probably don't know is that you guys were the first band to be released on CD in Omaha, right?
In the whole state.
That's crazy. And MTV had you guys on there.
Yeah, yeah. It made the news. It made the news, and we were the first CD to be put out by that label in France, Sordide Sentimental, who put out really collectible singles by Joy Division, Tuxedo Moon, Psychic TV, Durutti Column. They wrote me. I still have the letter. It says, "We love your music. Would you honor us and let us put out your music as our first compact disc?" Are you fucking kidding me? Not
That's
only
right.
that, and on top of that, we got the deal. They sent us thousands of dollars to go back in the studio and record more music for the CD.
Man, how was
Yeah.
it playing in Digital Sex, being like, you know, post-punk new wave type group versus playing like with the Norman and the Rockwells and R.A.F? Like, would you say it's all the same scene or different scenes
It
when it
was a
comes
little
to that?
different. It was a little different. Being black, number one, you are dealing with that, number one, okay? In Digital Sex, everyone thought Steve, because he's a singer, assume he's the leader, but I was the leader of the band, and kind of was, was like a stick in my side, and so I would make noise, say, hey, this is my band, you know what I'm saying? I found overall more genuine acceptance on the punk scene than on the rock scene. The rock scene was always a mix, because I played all kinds of rock, and you're dealing with a lot of open racism as well as people just being nice, you know what I'm saying? And in the punk scene, you're not, it's like you're just what you are. So people aren't nice. They are what they are, So overall, I've just always gravitated to playing on the underground, less commercial side of things.
Wow. Yeah, it's a trip, especially, you know, being black and playing rock and roll. We're always thought of as an anomaly, but they don't realize, a lot of cats don't realize that, hey, not only is this our music, we've innovated it and we're still here no matter what.
Still here.
Um,
Still here.
and,
Still here.
and it's amazing that you pretty much like you are a pillar like in the music scene, like in Omaha and stuff, and just how being in the music scene for such a long time, how would you say it's changed in a way from like when you got into it in the 70s versus now?
Well, I know that I've helped to make things more diverse here in the Midwest. I know that I've helped to do that. Um, Nebraska is still very conservative. It's a red state. Um, but interestingly, all along, there's always been a whole scene of art that is kind of separate from what you see on TV in the mainstream. And so I think that that's always been there. And like with Saddle Creek Records becoming financially successful, it popped into the perception of the city at large. So I'm happy to say that I've been helpful in helping the yeah, I'll say it like this, helping Nebraska grow regarding acceptance of its own people's diversity of what they do. Although the mainstream is still quite very white, very white. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. I mean, and I could see not only why you have the Hall of Fame, you're in the Nebraska Music Hall of Fame, but also even segueing from what we're talking about, some of the stuff that you were involved in as a youth, and
Sure.
we've touched on it. You being in the Panthers, like
Correct.
seriously, like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and we've talked about the case of the Omaha too a few
Mm-hmm.
times. How did that
Mm-hmm.
affect you? And also, how did you get into the Panthers? I have people that were in around the late '60s and early
Mm-hmm.
'70s that were in that too, and and it's interesting to hear their stories. You know,
Okay. Okay. Well, it was because of my older sister that I ended up joining what was the Nebraska chapter. Nebraska is so red that they wouldn't allow the Black Panthers to register the name. So we couldn't call the Black Panther Party that in Nebraska. We had to call it some kind of bullshit name. I forget what it was. But, because we grew up in a mixed neighborhood, and I say we, my brothers and sisters, we assimilated white culture pretty good, okay? From being in so like we grew up on the south side going to predominantly white schools, being average students, going to the ghetto and becoming straight A students, okay, because of the difference in education quality. My sister, who's 3 years older than me, her emergence of black, um, her recognition of our black culture started to emerge. Me and my older sister to this day are very close. And so she's a huge Beatles fan. And so the first thing that happened to her was that she felt like she had to reject white culture. And that was aside from me, but she got involved with the Panthers, and I was observing the difference in her. We talked a lot. The whole aspect of how not just black people but people of color, how our rights are not we don't have any rights, in how the laws are written this to our disadvantage. She started to become aware of that stuff and share it with me. It was really mind opening. And so what led me to go to first just visiting a Panther meeting, with her. And then I could see the sincerity, the propaganda that they say about the Panthers is none of it's true. The cop
none
that
of
they
it.
say, none of it. The cop that they said that the Panthers killed with a bomb, none of it's true. I was at the headquarters that night. I know what happened. I got banned from court because we wanted to testify the truth. They didn't want to hear it. But it was because of finding out the true mission of the Black Panthers, which was to protect the rights of not just black, but all people of color. I said, I'm down with this. I was just a kid. I was 14 going on 15. But that's when I said, okay, yeah, I'm with this. I'm with this.
Yeah, it was messed up. I remember finding out about like I watched some documentary and it was just like, man, I tripped out. I'm like, I didn't know there was an Omaha chapter,
Yeah,
and with the whole David Rice, better known as Mondo Wilanga and Edward Poindexter.
yeah,
And what
great people.
happened, and I'm like, man, there's another example of COINTELPRO type stuff, like just
Yeah,
and
I
I mean,
had to
there's so
deal
many
with
cases.
Yeah, I had to deal with COINTEL. Our phone was bugged. I was followed by plainclothes FBI to school, to the store. They're wasting good taxpayer money following some black kid just going to school, just going to the store to get some milk for mama. And then they finally, they followed us so much that they asked my mom's permission if they could interview us and take our picture. My mom said, "You can talk to my kids, but you ain't taking no picture." So that's how. And if you were to look it up in the Library of Congress, there's a file on me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was bullshit.
That's
It was.
it's totally is BS, man. Like it's I have another friend who was a part of the Chicago
Hmm.
chapter, and he knew Fred Hampton, and they have a
Hmm.
file on him too. You know, he
Hmm.
and it's crazy just some of the things
Hmm.
that a lot of brothers and sisters have gone through, not only then but now as well. You know, just
Yeah,
and
yeah,
people
it's
think
thing.
stuff like COINTELPRO has ended, but from what I
Mm.
understand, it never did.
Well, look at what we're dealing with. We're almost going to have Trump as president again. That tells it all. You know what I'm saying? That just tells you everything, everything.
Yeah.
That ain't nothing but about that is nothing but pure racism and about maintaining that white privilege that was wrong in the first place and about the money. That's all that shit's about.
Yeah, and they're trying to outlaw our history. Look at Ron DeSantis and all these like that Vivek,
Yeah,
whatever the heck his name. I was laughing at that debate. They just look like a bunch of little kids
yeah,
vomiting at each other. I
yeah. It's
was
pretty sad.
laughing. I'm like, this.
Yeah,
I mean, you got people like DeSantis, and you got people like this Vivek dude who's like a total butt
yeah.
kisser, and just
Right.
I
Totally.
know, yeah, it's just
It's
crazy,
horrible.
man. But
It's
for
horrible.
me,
So thank goodness for music. Thank goodness for music and art.
yeah, exactly. I feel like for me, um, and even with what we're doing here at Black History of Rock and Roll, and like my homegirl Sam and my other homie Nikki does on her platform, it's just like, hey, we're definitely bringing up our stuff and not relying off of what the mainstream media even cares about. It's time that
Hmm.
our stories get out there. It's time for our own empowerment. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And it's
absolutely.
influenced by the Panthers and groups like that. And
Hmm.
just and even the ones before, like any empowerment that our ancestors have that is, you
Right.
know, I'm a reparationist too. So it's kind of like
Hmm.
that. I'm
Hmm.
all about
Hmm.
all that. Oh,
Yeah.
Jared had something to say. Why would they stop COINTELPRO? There was really no one to make
Yeah.
them stop. That's true.
Yeah.
That's
Ain't nothing
real.
stopped. Ain't nothing stopped. I got more stories. I got stories that I still won't tell related to the government and like because when I was working mental health, the whole stuff with Jeffrey Epstein, that stuff started. That's been going on forever. And I worked with. There's the whole Franklin credit union sex scandal that happened here in Nebraska.
Oh
I worked with the victims. I know what happened.
my God.
I there's certain things that it's like I just hold my tongue because it's like it's like I know it's still going on. They got rid of Epstein, but it's still going on. It was going on before he was there, and the kids that I worked with who were damaged for life, I heard their stories.
My God. That's
Yeah,
another thing I want to bring up. Just it's amazing that you're not only a musician, but also you're a mental health specialist. How did you
yeah.
get into that? And I'm sure there's a connection, but I'd like to hear your
It's
description on
totally
the
connected.
connection between music and that.
Well, it's totally connected. Now, the way that I ended up with working in the mental health system was because of my mom. My mom ended up having to quit music because, first off, she had depression. I would self-diagnose. I don't know if she was diagnosed schizophrenic, but when she started getting pregnant with the kids, there's that, postnatal depression and all that. Then when she had my youngest brother Pat, she lost her hearing. Okay, that's enough to make you go crazy. Okay, we were too poor to um, afford hearing aids, so she read lips. Anyway, because of all that and the way it affected my childhood, I wondered, am I crazy? Are we all crazy? What's crazy? So I had that interest in understanding what's real, and in high school, took a real interest in any parts of classes that would deal with psychology. Okay, and consequently, my senior year, some friends of mine who stayed at an all-boys prep school when I went to a public school, whole nother story there. But they ended up doing where the class would send you out into the community to have an experiential thing. They ended up working at this runaway center, which was in my neighborhood. So I would go up to meet them. One thing led to the other. I started volunteering there. Then they hired me because of, my natural ability with people. And then in my first years of college, at first I was thinking about becoming a draftsman, technical drawing, but I was also taking psychology courses. But by then I was working. First, like I said, at the Runaway Center, then I got closed. Then I took a job at Nebraska Children's Home, worked there, and went from there into the hospitals. Okay, it was all due to my own family wanting to understand, is my mom crazy? Some people didn't think my mom was really deaf. They thought she was faking it.
Wow.
It was crazy. Yeah, my mom wasn't faking it. We could talk for hours. So that's what started it. But, once I got into starting to studying in school and understanding diagnoses and that whole deal and the history of psychiatry and human behavior, it fascinates me. I'm retired now, but I'm still involved. Whenever I go out, if I go to the store, I run into people who are ex-clients. The ethics law is that when you encounter ex-patients, you don't acknowledge them unless they acknowledge you. I've always followed that because they always come at me, and it still happens that, I've been retired since 2013. People will see me in the store and they want to come and do a check-in. They want to get some counseling.
Wow.
I'll do it. I do it on the spot. To this day, I'll do it.
Man, I was going to ask you, how do you respond? Because I have other friends that work in that field, like, and someone close to me used to, and she was like, I'm chilling now because it was some heavy stuff that she went through.
It's very heavy. It's very heavy. It's very heavy. And I see people who I started working with them when they were children, and they're adults now, and they're still in the system because of the illness. It's not their fault. So when I'm thinking of a particular guy named Mark, a black man, he's a man now, but last time I saw him in the old market on the street, he come running up like a child, just like that, I'm all right now. I'm all right now. I seen you. I'm all right now. That's happened. So, man, I had this woman one time run into me I just told this story. I was at Baker's supermarket just doing groceries, and I spotted her from the distance. I'm just doing my thing. She spots me. She come run over, got down on her knees.
Wow.
To me. Yeah, man. And the deal is, I've always taken my job. I always took those jobs as more than a job. It's like I'm trying to help. And so that came through, and so it's still, I'll stop today. If somebody stops me on the street and they need a minute, I'll give them a minute. I will. I don't give people money,
Yeah.
I don't, because I just had that with a woman who, she was trying to give me this spiel about how I'm doing really good now. And you ain't got a couple quarters of, girl, you better stop that shit.
Like, okay, I see what you're trying to do.
That's right. Don't blame me. Don't be playing me.
Man, but that just shows how great your heart is, man. And it's amazing how would you say that, like, with music, like, would you say music, like, in that sense, like, how would you translate that into music, whether it be live or recorded, or just even with your patients? I find, like, some of the stuff that I've been involved in, I've had people tell me that some of the programs that I've done, like, it's kind of therapeutic, and actually,
That's it. You said it. There's a complete connection. It's all blended together. My whole vibe when I play, no matter what band I'm in, my whole vibe on stage is, we're trying to connect, and I want this experience to be a shared experience, So so all the bands, anything I do, it's all connected. And music can be a healer. And so that's my focus with it, is music as a healer.
Definitely. I mean, it's funny. I was talking to a gal that I know that has a business, and she's really into, like, a lot of holistic stuff. And she was wondering just my opinion, because someone told her basically music like heavy metal and punk are evil and negative. And I think that's some kind of Pythagorean madness. But
Yeah, that's
for me,
bullshit.
I told her, I'm like, no, it's a
Yeah,
release.
yeah,
Like,
it is.
I
It's
love,
yeah, yeah. There's you within all genres, you can find punk where the energy is negative, but for the most part, it's a release. But if you listen to the lyrics, but also you feel a lot of the music, it's like Cro-Mags or come to mind. It's like this music is necessary.
it
Th-
is.
This music is necessary. This helps people live.
Yep.
This helps people to live. It helps people to live better.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
I like this. I think it was heavy metal, some heavy metal documentary, and one of the, I'm glad they focused on that, like just the brain waves and stuff, and how it's the first time I've ever seen this on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And like the guy was basically saying, well, this is helping you deal with those things that you're angry with or whatever. It's helping you to kind of get rid of that. It's
Right.
fulfilling, that what's the word for it? It's a cathartic situation. Like for
Catharsis.
me,
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's
Like
very cathartic. Yeah.
I'm a high energy person. I can't
Mm-hmm.
relate to just listening to freaking harmonic conversions all the time. The only mellow music I
Mm-hmm.
listen to is Ethiopian chant music from church. Other than that, and Coptic stuff, but like, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe some other stuff from the East and all that.
Right.
But other than
Right.
that, I love that crazy free jazz, hardcore,
Yeah.
grindcore, punk rock, all that stuff.
Yeah. Is
Weird
that
hip
what you?
hop, you name it.
Yeah. Is that what you're currently doing? Like currently, are you playing right now these days?
I haven't been playing out much. Now I'm just trying to record and like, at this point, like just trying to get more money to get back into the studio with one of my projects. But I have a number of other projects too. This one project is more influenced by 70s hard rock heavy
Hey,
metal that I've
Orlando,
been
one second, one
doing.
second. I got to go to the boys' room.
Oh,
Sorry,
sure,
I got
sure.
to go. Okay, I'll be
Yeah,
right
man.
back. But then you
Intermission.
continue. I want to hear it.
Intermission. Man. Let's see. I'm so sorry you guys haven't been checking the comments. So true about music being a release. Yes, it's definitely a release. And if you're into music, the cool thing about it is like whether you play it or you just listen to it, it communicates something to you, and that's why I'm into it. People like myself, I don't fit anywhere else, man, and I don't mind it. I really don't. I like the fact that I could like just be one of those people to actually to make such things happen when it comes to music. Orlando, do you have any demos of stuff you're looking to record? I have some stuff that I've done on SoundCloud. Some of those I have. That's the only thing that I have so far. I have a 4-track. 4-track tapes that I did in the '90s, but I need to. I need to get another 4-track so I can remaster that stuff or remix that stuff and put it out. It's old.
Yeah, I'm back. Do you have anything on vinyl? Do you have any releases on vinyl?
Man, the only thing I have on vinyl is like with my old band Javelina. But other than that, my own stuff I don't. I really want to put this my this project that I'm working on vinyl just because it's in the spirit of like a lot of those 70s hard rock heavy metal bands that did, Sabbath, early Funkadelic, T-Rex, bands like early Deep Purple and all that. I
Mhm.
really want to put that on vinyl.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it, man. See, I wanted to
Man.
share that I never met Hendrix, but I have a Hendrix connection.
Oh, let me hear this.
Oh, I thought you knew that. Now, you know that Buddy Miles played with Hendrix, right?
Yeah.
Well, Buddy Miles is from Omaha. I grew up with the
Oh,
Miles.
what? I
Yeah, I used to
didn't know
play.
that.
Yeah, I used to play at the kids at. I really like Buddy's dad, George. So, I'd hang out over there. And then I remember Buddy from early days jamming, and my dad would jam with him, And Buddy was big, fat, and nasty and black, and he was nasty. See, I'm going to talk about this, but I loved him. But he would mac on teenage girls. But that's typical.
No,
But come on now, yeah, that was nasty, but that's typical, unfortunately. Okay, but here's the
man.
deal. Here's the deal. His first cousin, John Pennington, was my best friend in grade school, and I hung out over there a lot, okay? And so the deal was they would get Buddy Miles's records before anybody else. They'd get promos. So when Buddy's album Expressway to Your Skull came out, produced by Hendrix, they got that months before it came out. I was knocked out by it, and the fact that it was produced by Jimi Hendrix, I would beg them to play it for me because it wasn't out yet. But here's what's funny, is that Buddy's family were embarrassed. They didn't think it was black enough, and I was just, this is amazing. And so I would go to their house to hear the Jimi Hendrix produced record months before it came out.
Wow, man!
Never got to meet Hendrix. I would think for sure he's been in Omaha with Buddy, just traveling through. You know, I knew Buddy at the end, and then the last time I had a chance to play with Buddy was at a jam session that got out of hand with drinking, and I left, so I didn't get to play with him. But I knew Buddy.
That's
Buddy.
Crazy. What was the deal with that band Electric Flag that he was in? Like, of course, Changes, you know.
Yeah, that's historic, okay? He was part of this group of people who are all my friends and used to jam at the house with my dad, who they wanted to make it. We're going to make it, man. We got to get out of Omaha. And Buddy was one of them. Now, he had started with touring like Chitlin Circuit with Wilson Pickett and stuff like that, but then he got hip to like meeting Mike Bloomfield. He got to play, he played at Monterey. He's part of history, okay? And then, just I got to throw this in right quick. Another member of Buddy's band, after he quit the Electric Flag and started his own band, the Buddy Miles Express, one of the horns players was a fellow named Hank Red, who ended up with Stevie Wonder for 13 years, okay?
Oh, wow.
They were part of the first wave of black people like the Chambers Brothers trying to claim rock for us, you know. I'm working with Hank Red now. Hank's going to be on he's going to be on my next record.
That's so cool, man. That is so cool. See, people need to know about that. They need to know about like that. I had no idea. I don't know why I didn't know he was from Omaha, man. Speaking of the Chambers Brothers, shouts to those brothers, man. I met those dudes like, a few times, man. Like Willie I met twice, but the other brother I met, like, shouts to the homie Snake, Snake and Dave, Mr. Dave Horn.
Yeah, they're heroes. They're heroes to me. Heroes.
Yeah, those guys are rad, man. Like, still cool cats too, man. Like,
that's fantastic that you got to meet them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was like, the first time you're gonna laugh at this. So I'm delivering food, Uber Eats. So I pick up at this place called House of Pies, and I'm way outside of my own city. And I go over to this House of Pies, and then all of a sudden I see this brother studded out, and here I am with my buttons, and I'm like, brother, you look cool, man. Like, we just started talking. He's like, I'm like, dude, are you a musician? He's like, yeah, man. I'm like, right. He's like, yeah, you probably know my band. The Chambers. Like, what? And I just like started like tripping out, dude. I took a selfie with him.
yeah.
It was Willie.
Yeah, I love things like that when they happen. That's awesome.
Man,
this is great.
Speaking of back then, I noticed that you started your record label in 1973, man. Like, how old were you? Were you a kid?
Oh, well, I'm 68, so I was in my 20s, okay? And really what I did was I didn't formally, register it, but it's like punk. Well, I'll start a label. I have my own imprint, okay? But since then, recently, I did incorporate myself and have my own publishing company, so now it's real. But back then it was just, well, hell, I can have a label. I can call myself a label.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that too. I'm just curious, do you have any recordings from I want to hear the recordings that you have from that time, especially like what kind of stuff were you putting out like in '73, man? Because I know about Norman Rockwell's Digital Sex, but what stuff were you working on? It was it you and your brother and sister jamming out, or
no? The very first anything that I recorded was Norman and the Rockwells. Anything before that is, we didn't record. There's a recording of my family band, okay? I was in the family band before that with my dad and my brothers. But we did covers, so because I don't have publishing, I don't make it public, you know what I'm saying? I did
Yeah,
share one track on the Mike Watt show, Mike from Pedro.
yeah,
So I was a guest on his show this year. So there's on that cast, you can hear a track of the Family Band. But yeah, I mean, before punk, I was playing Earth, Wind and Fire, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, you name it. My dad taught me right.
that's amazing, man. And speaking
Yeah,
of Coltrane, I got two questions about that.
you bet.
How was it meeting? How was it meeting Coltrane, man? Like, what
Well,
kind of how was,
I was just a
what was
kid,
the
okay? I was just a child, but this is what I can tell, honestly, because I met a lot of musicians, and I would hang out because I was fascinated with music and also records, okay? So when my dad had the jam sessions and when we would have the long listening sessions, I would hang out as much as he would allow me, and then we'd get late, he'd send me to bed. But for some reason, John Coltrane was in Omaha, okay? And there was apparently some kind of connection made in Chicago. My dad was raised in Chicago, okay? I was maybe 6 or 7 years old at the time. But I remember this man because his countenance, there was something about his countenance that reminded me of my grandfather on my mom's side, who was a minister, who was a big influence on me. He was what he said he was. He wasn't a backdoor man. He had changed his life. He was a spiritual man.
yeah?
I picked up on this about John Coltrane, and he ate with us. We were poor. We didn't have nothing, but he had a meal with us. And then he and my dad were going to go to the record store where my dad was going to buy John Coltrane's new 45. They used to put out 45s with jazz albums. I don't know if you knew that. And John, because of my enthusiasm, I'm pretty sure it was John that said, "Well, let's take your son with us, okay?" He popped me up on his knee for a minute and then held my hand when we walked into the record store. He was so kind to me. I was just a
That's so
child of
cool.
him. Yeah, I'll never forget it. Now, some other folks, like when Dexter Gordon came back through years later, I got to hang for a minute and find out about him and my dad. They were junkies together and shit like that.
Wow.
But yeah, and then I missed this. Louis Armstrong was at my grandparents' house. I missed that, but my brother Pat remembered that. We were around all kinds of people. You know what I'm saying?
That's
Like
so
you.
cool, man.
Yeah, like you.
Yeah,
Man.
man. Well, shoot, man. I'm around you right now, man. What's up, Kyle? And Goldstein said greetings from Berlin. Um, I wanted to ask this question, and I'm gonna give it to the audience to ask some questions too.
Sure.
Would you
Sure.
say it's funny because I see the parallel? I mean, like being a person that's been in all these scenes, I noticed there's things that, and I'm glad that people like Iggy Pop and like I think even Wayne Kramer talked about how much jazz was an influence on a lot of the early punk stuff too,
Mm-hmm.
and just as far as like the fact that MC5 covered a Sun Ra like tune or poem in their Starship thing. Would you say that those parallels are still there when it comes to just the expression of punk rock, like especially when it comes to avant-garde and free jazz,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I love about it is that the differences are in the minds of the audience. But my experience is that true artists and musicians, and there's a difference between entertainers and artists. Okay, true artists really don't see a distinction. Music is music, and it's a river that runs, and we're in it, and we like like waves appear on the surface, but in fact, it's all the same thing. So,
Yep.
so real. That's why I love my position because I work with all kinds of people from the avant-garde to the super straight, almost Eagles type of shit. But the real people recognize it's like it's a heart. It's a heart message. Music is a heart message. Yeah. I'm an old black hippie. I'm just an old black hippie.
We got a question coming. Check out Greg Tate's "Women in Love." It's a perfection amalgamation of jazz, punk, and soul. I gotta check that out, man. Rest in peace to Greg Tate.
Yes, yes.
Any questions from the audience? I'm curious. Gary, you have any more questions or anybody else for Mr. Higgins? Can
It's
I
just
call you
been
Dr.
really.
Higgins? Is that
Get
okay if I
on
call
out of
you?
here. Stop out. You know what they call me is they call me the Vinyl Pope in Poland. There's a book. There's a book with a chapter about me, and they call me the Vinyl Pope.
That's rad.
I love it. Yeah. You
Dude,
know, a new record. Go ahead.
how did you get that? Speaking of being a vinyl pope, how did you get on Adult Swim? That's amazing. I was all happy when I found out about that.
Well, it was through Saddle Creek Records is basically the connection. You know about Saddle Creek Records?
No.
Bright Eyes, Bright Eyes, Bright
I
Eyes.
know
You heard
about
Bright Eyes?
Bright Eyes.
So
Yeah.
that was the record label though that released his records, launched his career, became a financial success story for Nebraska. Okay, it drew people from all over the United States to Omaha trying to get some of that flavor. So I ended up hooking up with these people from Atlanta, Georgia, who came to Omaha, you know, on the Saddle Creek thing. Okay, Dave Matesiak in particular. And then Sun Ambulance. I don't know if you know the band Sun Ambulance. That's another band I was in that was on Saddle Creek. I toured U.S. and Europe with that band. Okay,
Wow.
yeah, amazing, amazing. I've actually played in 45 of the 50 states. Played,
Sheesh. Wow.
you know, don't even, and nobody even hardly knows it. Okay, but
Wow.
but I was trying to answer your question. What was it?
Oh, just how did you end up on how did you get your corner
Oh, the
on
Adult Swim. Okay, so Adult Swim. So the deal was, my friend Dave Matesiak, who was originally from Atlanta, came here, lived here for a while. We became really good friends. He started a band called Coyote Bones. I'm on that record. But then things changed, and he moved back to Atlanta, and he got a job at Adult Swim. Okay, and the deal was, when he was in Omaha, I'm well known for, I used to have these hangs, Friday night hangs, come over, smoke weed, and get turned on to music at Higgins' place, Higgs Corner, Higgs' place. I never called myself Higgs. They started calling me Higgs, okay? So when he got back to Atlanta, he kept waxing poetic about, man, we used to have so much fun, you know. And then he's the one that came up with the idea of, first he was part of this show called Stupid Morning Bullshit, okay, on Adult Swim, okay? And that show is a parody of Good Morning America, shows like that, okay? So they had this segment of the show about new music. And so then Dave got a hold of me and said, well, hey, would you consider doing a segment about old music where we're always turning the kids on to new releases, but how about you turn people on to old music that they should hear? I said, sure. You're going to pay me? Sure. So I did that for a couple of years, where they would have me on every Friday, Old Music Friday. And then they pitched to them. It wasn't my idea, it was his idea. He says, what do you say we do a whole show of Higgins? You know, let's try it. And he pitched to them, and they said, well, make a spec. You know, they didn't want to put out any money. You know, do a spec. So that's when we did the first half-hour show, and they liked it. And they sent a crew up to Omaha from Atlanta, and we taped 3 more shows, and then COVID hit. That's what happened.
Wow.
And so COVID hit, and consequently, my friend Dave and the other tech people lost their jobs at Adult Swim.
Wow.
So that's what happened.
I love what I've seen of that show, man. It's definitely something different.
Yeah,
You
thank you.
know,
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I would, if they could get the money. He says he hasn't completely left the idea alone, but it's all about funding, getting someone to fund
yeah,
it. You know.
yeah, man. And it's a trip like this to see something like that, you know,
I've done
on
movies
like a
too.
major thing. What
Thank you.
was
And I've
that?
done movies too. I've done movies as well.
Oh, wow. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah, mainly behind the scenes. I was a wardrobe. So they're not big movies, but they are feature films. One is called Lovely Still, came out in 2017. I worked with Ellen Burstyn and Martin Landau.
Oh, wow.
Now,
I haven't heard Martin Landau's name in a long time.
yeah, the original Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Okay, but Ellen Burstyn is also an Academy Award winner. I keep forgetting the. It's a
I
movie
remember.
about. Yeah, it's a movie about addiction that she's in. That's real well known. But I did wardrobe in that, and that from there, I got hired to do a movie about Columbine. Remember Columbine, the killing?
Ooh,
I did a movie about that. Yeah,
like
with Tom
how?
Arnold.
Oh wow! Like I'm
Yeah,
curious. Like how did
it's
you?
called it's
That's a
called April
heavy
Sour.
freaking.
It was heavy. It was heavy. My mental health background ended up being part of it. I was hired to do wardrobe based on the work I'd done on Lovely Still. So I was head of wardrobe. But then when we did the heavy scenes of we used actual SWAT to do the high school scene of the shooting, okay, when the police arrived. And the kids, all the extras, they weren't really prepped for this. And many of them freaked out, so I had to open up a crash
Lord of
tent.
mercy.
Yeah, and call people's parents and come here and come get your kid and shit, But Tom Arnold, Roseanne Barr's husband, was one of the principal actors. And Tom, if you see this, I ain't gonna say too much, but your ass was a mess, and I had to be a counselor to his ass on the movie
Wow.
set. That's just two
That's
movies
a
I've
heavy.
done.
That's
Then
a
I was in
heavy
another
thing
movie.
to deal with.
Yeah, but I love it. Frankly, it's part of who I am. I was in another movie called Lucky with Colin Hanks and Anne Margaret. I'm just in
Wow.
one scene in that movie. I'm just in one scene in that movie, but yeah, movies are a trip. Yeah, movies are a trip.
I've done a few myself. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So where
Yeah.
can I see you? Where can I see you on YouTube? Where can I see you?
You're gonna laugh at this, man. You know the new Michael Jai White movie, Outlaw Johnny Black? I'm in that movie, but I have a
Who's
long
that?
beard and a cowboy hat. Dude, it's hilarious, man. I'm
Oh,
I'm
that's
also
cool.
I'm in a few music videos too. I was in the Dave Stewart. By the way, my name is Orlando Greenhill. For the person that asked me that, I thought I'd introduce myself. He asked me who my name was.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a music video for Vanessa Amrosi. David Stewart, I think, produced her, and he actually thanked us for our participation in that video. It was really cool.
Right.
But I've been in a few movies here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have to think about them because I mostly do extra work.
Right.
Like
Right.
nothing as
Sure.
cool as what you did with those kids, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you. We're
I'm in a
still
video with K Michelle.
nice, nice, nice. That's cool, Orlando. Yeah, we do have a lot of parallels in our lives. We do.
Man,
Thank you for having me on your show too. I really appreciate this. Thank you. You know,
man, I've been wanting to do this for a few years, and I'm sorry it took as long as it did. But man, thank you for like having me. Like, thank you for letting me have you on here. I think it's really cool. Oh, somebody asked the question. Have any of you ever, any chance you will ever perform live the Muse and Interlude?
I haven't yet. I was trying to, for a minute, put together a album release show for the Muse, and then it sold out. And then the guitar player whom I made the record with moved to New York, so that disappeared. I could still do a one-man show probably at any time, and I might, but my enjoyment is I did one show this year where I featured music from the Interlude at Pet Fest here in Omaha. But I like the band experience, playing with other people live. I love that. So playing solo doesn't interest me that much, but I may do before the end of the year one show to feature the interlude music. I might.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna ask you, what musical projects are you up to these days? It seems like you
Okay,
got a lot of stuff going on.
I stay busy. So I've got two things that are on schedule for release next year already. There's a young musician from Omaha named David Nance.
Huh.
And a couple years ago, I joined his band, the David Nance Band. I'm not in the band anymore. I'm in the collective. He tours a lot, and I don't want to tour. But anyway, we recorded his next album during COVID. It comes out in February on Jack White's label, Third Man Records.
Wow.
I'm really pleased about that. There'll be a promo video we've already done. I'm looking forward to the promotion that we'll experience from Third Man Records on that. Okay, that's coming up. I just licensed a song for the Dark Entries label, record label,
Huh.
Dark Entries. it's they're going to be putting out a compilation next year around the time of Pride, and they asked to put one of my songs on this album for Pride Month.
Wow.
Sure, pay me for it. I'm happy to be associated with Pride, Gay Pride. You know, I'm not. I don't identify. You know, gay, straight. I don't identify with none of that shit. Okay. Um, the thing that I have the Muse follow up ready to go, but the trumpet player is very busy right now with other projects, so that'll happen. I had mentioned Hank Red earlier, and Hank Red played with Stevie Wonder for 13 years. Now, you've
Hmm.
heard Sir Duke by Stevie Wonder, right? Da,
Yeah.
da. That's
Yeah.
Hank
Love that
Red.
song.
That's Hank,
Wow.
that's Hank Red. He is working with me on a project of his, and he'll be on my next record.
That's so rad, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, that's
And
amazing.
I've been picking his brain when we get together, telling me stories. He is part of the history of black people involved in rock. I mean, he was at Montreux. He didn't play with Electric Flag, but he was there. He's played all over the world with Buddy Miles. He was there at the beginning of this into the 60s and 70s when it was still this very radical thing of mixed race bands. And he was there. I mean, he hung out with Jimi Hendrix.
Wow.
You know, I'm recording with him now, so that's one of my current projects. Um, my neighbor, who wasn't a good friend of mine, but we were becoming friends, suddenly died a few
Oh,
weeks ago, and that just kind of shocked me. So I've been writing some music that's inspired by that. So I'm always working. When I get done with you, I'm gonna turn the studio back on. Actually,
that's man. That's so cool, man. I just, it's just always, and I noticed your post. I'm like, yeah, this brother's always involved in so many things, and it's funny because I noticed we have like a lot of mutual friends. Some of them you've hosted, like Mel Banana. Like I know Agata and Yasuko and all them. You know, like and it's so cool to see them, and you know the guys from Acid Mothers and Yoshida and all them. Man,
yeah,
it's a trip. It's the fact that like man,
it's a big small world.
it's a very big small world, man, and I really appreciate just like not only your input, but the fact that you're using your gift of music and also, man, what you've done with mental health, like to help people, and that says a whole lot, just like about you and just how much you care about people in that regard too. That's
Thank you,
that's that's more than that's a protector and a pillar at the
thank you,
same time.
thank
Like
you. It's
man,
very conscious. It's
like
very conscious. It's very conscious. Again, I want to give credit to my elders, my family, and other elders in my community, particularly black elders. Folks, I still remember folks who were born into slavery as a little boy. These
wow,
people they were like the elders of the church. They just had so much dignity. I learned a lot from that. And it really is true. Those epithets and those things that you were taught as a kid, do unto others. That's all I'm doing. It's like I learned a long time ago. How am I going to expect you to be decent to me if I'm not decent to you? So
truth,
that's what it's about. Real simple.
real
I
talk, man.
I'm done with religion, but I almost became a minister, almost became a priest. I went to monastery as an acolyte for a short time.
Wow,
I was raised Baptist. Then, because of my experience at the Catholic boys' school, which was a mix of real positive and negative, I converted to Catholicism thinking I wanted to become a Jesuit, okay? And then I
huh?
applied and went to monastery in Minnesota and got a real rude wake-up call, okay?
Wow.
What am I doing dealing with sexual advances
Oh,
in a monastery,
no,
okay?
not good.
And I was underage. I was an acolyte. I was 17 or 18. And here's these older Jesuits. I'm saying, what the fuck is up with this? It was a rude
Yeah,
wake-up call. It was a rude wake-up call. But in many ways, I'm glad because from there I continued to study, and I went Eastern. So I don't identify with any, or I respect as much as I can people who do organize religion. But I'm just a man of spirit. I'm a spiritual man.
I hear you. Yeah, I
I've
mean,
worked,
I don't know if you know,
yeah,
I'm a Tawahedo Orthodox Christian. Funny thing
yes,
is,
yes,
I
yes,
thought about becoming a monk, but I'm like, I want to get married someday.
yeah,
I
yeah,
still have the same spiritual practices, but
mhm,
the Most High. I'm like, hey, may the Most High guide all of us, man. That's where I'm
mhm.
at. I
Right,
got to
right,
work on myself.
yeah,
I got
exactly,
to work.
exactly, yeah,
I'm the
and you got
biggest thorn
right, and you got a
in my
family, you got a
own
family,
self.
right, and you got a family too, right?
Yeah. Oh no,
Yeah,
no,
right.
not on my own.
Oh, okay,
I'm
yeah,
not married. No, no, no kids or anything. But like, I
yeah.
have like, my mom and my brother and sisters. Like,
Okay, yeah,
so for me,
yeah,
I'll visit a monastery, but I'm not trying to do that anytime soon. That's just not where I'm led. Just like you're
yeah,
saying, like,
yeah,
I'm sorry
yeah.
that you had that crazy experience. So that's not good. That's not good at
Well, I'm
all.
glad that I'm glad that I had it because I have the inside experience. And right quick, I also have worked in government. I worked along with a lobbyist for my last job. So I have some inside views of just how corrupt, how racist, how horrid the system is. That's why I'm a musician. That's why I'm like I am. I ain't about the money. It's about life.
How do
It's
you
about life.
navigate through that? I'm curious. I just want to hear your opinion on how you, especially being, you know, like our group as original Black Americans or foundational Black Americans, whatever you want to call us, we have
Mm-hmm.
a legacy of just striding through, being inventive and innovative, and we've created our own culture. People think that
Right.
we haven't, but we have, in spite of a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the things that we've gone through. I'm
Right.
curious. I've heard stories from my grandma. I've heard stories from like my mom and my dad. How did you navigate through that? I'm just curious, like, and
Well,
even navigate now. Because I like
well,
the fact I saw a video that you did on Nebraska and just the environment there, and just
yeah.
like, hey, this is my situation that I have to deal with.
Right.
I'm just
Right.
curious on how you deal with that, like
Again,
navigate through
again,
that.
again, I have to give props first off to what I was taught by my family and my elders, and then also just being curious myself in life, wanting to understand human behavior. So I've studied. Okay. So I don't know how long ago it was, but I started to really understand that it's an illusion to think that anyone on this planet really knows the sum total of reality. It's an illusion to think that there are people who are better than you or more deserving of you. There are people who are more powerful than you because of money, physical things, whatever. But when it comes to just being a human, I learned a long time ago that it's an even playing field. So don't, I never give into the illusion that other people have something that I don't, or that they're more powerful than me, or that somehow that I should be cowed by them. So I see everyone as the same, and so it makes me feel, basically it makes me feel powerful. I ain't afraid of y'all motherfuckers. That's how I feel. Nobody, nobody, you know what I'm saying? I ain't afraid of you people. Y'all
That's
is full
right.
of shit. You people are as full of shit as I am, and you're just as holy or divine as I am, depending on what you're putting out. So that's how I navigate, and that has been that realization just crystallizes more and more as I get older. It's like ain't nobody fooling me. I'm not afraid of
Real
people.
talk.
I'm not afraid of the world. And I have been in life-threatening situations. I've had people wanting to think, well, it's you or me, And I said, well, it ain't gonna be me. I'm still here talking. Okay.
Real talk.
Okay. I've had to put myself in, these are things that you don't do these things and tell people you do it because it has to be done. But I have had to put myself in between a person with a gun and my clientele.
Lord of
Yeah.
mercy.
Yeah. You know, and thankfully that person, he was out of his mind on crack. He gave me the gun.
Wow.
Yeah. He backed down because he knew. He was nuts. He was out of his mind. He was about to waste people for no reason. And I had another um, co-worker who the stress got to him and he committed suicide, my friend Tom. But he and we confronted this, at the agency where I worked at. This was less than 10 years ago. But Horace, I'll say his first name, he was street. and he came in. He was just off his head on something bad, and he was holding the whole agency hostage. And everybody else is freaking out. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And I just said, Tom, because we had a relationship with this man, so we went up to him, right in front of him. So it's experiences like that, or Orlando, that have just made me feel strong to just be who I am and not believe any sort of illusion that somebody's more deserving, more smart, whatever the fuck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Bring it on. I can handle your ass. I can handle your ass. I wish I could. I wish I could get to. I wish I could get to people like Trump. You know what I'm saying? Because he's so full of shit. Let me just say it like this. I had never heard the name Hillary Clinton until I worked with the sex victims of the Franklin Credit Union. I didn't know who the fuck that bitch was. Pardon my language.
Wow.
Okay? Yeah, the shit them kids. Oh my God. I can't tell the whole story here because people have disappeared.
Lord of mercy.
Yes, so I feel that. I know that's very sincere from you. Cross yourself, brother. We're talking real shit now, okay?
I know you are. I know you are.
Thank you so much for having me on. This has been great, and you can have me on again if you want. Okay?
Yeah, I'd be awesome to have you on again, man. I really appreciate it. A brother was saying I shared a couple of words in passing with Dereck, and I could tell that he's very kind, very kind. So of course, yes.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I
you.
like the fact that you're an OG and you don't have that stank, like snotty, like, oh, I'm this avant-garde punk rock OG. You're real down to earth. I dig that, man.
Yeah, I can't hang with that. And anytime that I have a chance to meet somebody that's doing that shit, I'll bust that bubble in a minute. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Say I ain't down with that shit. You know what I'm saying? I used to party with you've heard of the Warren Buffett, the millionaire from Nebraska.
Yeah, didn't he die or something recently?
No, he's still around. But I used to party with his daughter, Susie Buffett. Then she started getting sedity on me, and I just told her, well, you too good for me. Well, fuck you, straight up like that,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
forget that fool.
That's right.
Well,
that's right.
Well, man, it was great having you. Oh, there's somebody. Jared. Jared said if you're in New York City, I'd be honored to hang and talk. Yeah, dude, that'd be rad to have you guys like talk together. Jared runs a studio and stuff too.
It can happen. It can happen. It's been a while since I've been to New York. I haven't been doing any traveling since COVID, and I need to get out a little bit. I love New York. I can't remember the places I played there, but I've always had a great time, and I definitely went down to the Bowery when I was there. I wanted to see if I could hang, you know what I mean? Yeah, Yeah. This is great.
Let people know where to find you and any other social media stuff that you got and your label and all that.
It's really simple. If you Google my name, Dereck Higgins, Dereck Higgins, you'll see it. I'm on Facebook, I'm on SoundCloud, Mixcloud. I'm here on Instagram. I'm on X, Twitter. I'm on Bandcamp. Buy my shit. Buy my new CD.
Yeah, I need to do that.
Get this, okay? So, like, the picture on the back is balloons, okay? Those balloons are from the memorial for Terrace Martin's dad. You know who Terrace Martin is?
No.
Oh, come on now. You know who Kendrick Lamar is?
Yeah. He's in Compton.
Yeah, so Terrace Martin produced his biggest albums, okay?
Wow.
Terrace Martin's dad was my friend from Omaha. He just died recently.
Wow.
I finally got to meet Terrace at the memorial, and these are the balloons that Terrace personally released for his dad. That's what's on the back of my cover here.
Wow.
But I finally got to meet Terrace. Before I could introduce myself, he recognized me. Higgins!
That's so cool, man.
It's like that. It's like that. And like you said, it wouldn't be like that if I let it go to my head.
Yeah, thank you for not being like that. Because I can't stand that. Yeah, I not cool. I never want to
Not
be like that, man. I mean, like
not
ever.
cool. Not cool.
Like
When
I
I met
can't stand snobbery like that, though. Like
Exactly. When I met Kiss, Paul Stanley was like that. Gene was cool to me. Paul Stanley is like I could have kicked his ass on the spot.
what? Gene was actually cool to you?
Gene, yes. And Johnny Ramone was cool to me. He remembered me. He was happy
Wow.
to see me with his racist ass. He remembered
Exactly.
me, okay? He was cool to me, okay? I have,
That's
like I said,
heavy.
I feel blessed by the experiences that I've had. Getting to flirt with Patti Smith and having her say, you probably better put your shirt back on. you know, I got stories, my friend, and many of them I won't tell in public.
Wow, that's a trip, man. What a trip, man. Like that's so crazy.
Yeah. One more quick one. I had to help Joey Ramone get his nerves together to go out and do an in-store record. He was having a panic attack,
Oh,
and yeah, and was at a store I used to work at, and they come down to do the meet and greet, and they said, Joey's in the back. They can't get him to come out. And I used to work there. I said, just let me go back. And I just used my skills, and I walked him out, and he was able to do the meet and greet and the show.
dude, you're such a godsend, man. Like that's so cool. Like seriously, like not just anyone can do that. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
that, and that helps a lot. To have someone trustworthy to talk to because it's
mhm.
rare. It's
Yeah.
very rare, man.
Very important. It's very important. It's very important. Again, these experiences are also what lets me know to not be fooled by anyone. We're all just human. All just human. All just
Yeah,
human. Yeah. Thank you, Orlando.
man. I'm just I'm like marveling at like, oh, Jared was like, we can do that on Zoom. Shit, like I'd never been to Omaha. Yeah, man, talking about connections if y'all want to connect and all that, like
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I have a lot of folks who want to connect like that, and I'm usually hesitant. Um, Something will happen. So do it like that, okay? Maybe next time you have me, have him join us here.
yeah, it's funny. I'm gonna have him like on one of these pretty soon. We've been talking about schedules, so
Okay.
yeah, that'd be rad.
Okay. Well, I'll check that out. I'll check that out because I checked out your last guest. I don't remember her name, but it's like
Militia,
yeah, Militia. Yeah, this is a good thing. So yeah, I'll check in when you talk to him. I'll
most
join.
definitely, man.
All right.
I don't know if you saw Mark. Mark was on here a few days ago. Have you ever rock with that dude,
Mark?
Mark Edwards?
No, I don't think I know who that is.
Mark played with Cecil Taylor. He's played with David S. Ware. He
Wow.
also with Weasel Walter. I think you know Weasel.
Yeah. Okay. So I will go back and watch that. That sounds like I should check that out. I will then. I will.
Man, what a
Awesome.
trip. Well, thanks a million, Dereck. I really appreciate this. I'm so glad we rocked this madness, man.
Very
Man,
happy.
and thanks
Very
for
happy.
all the
Okay.
stuff that you've done, bro.
Well, you too. I'm looking at you and I'm feeling you, and I can tell you are a good person. I can tell. I can feel your spirit as well as what I see, as what you say. I can tell it's coming out of you. Okay, so you got a Dereck Higgins ghetto pass. Okay,
Thank you, brother. Thanks,
and
man.
and people here in Omaha know that I'm not shy about that. I have kicked people out of my house when people bring guests, and they'll bring somebody in, and I'll just wait and say, this nigga ain't right. Get him out of my house. And I'll say to
Wow.
him, you got to go. I don't know who you are, but you go. Your energy ain't right. You're all right, Orlando.
Thanks. I really appreciate that, man. Like seriously, bro. Like, man. Well, do you have any parting words for people to just like any advice for, especially for what you do? Like, do you have any advice for just
I just
our
really,
audience?
just really, I think the most important thing I try to share with people is to please try to see through the veil that keeps you from really accepting and loving yourself and seeing just how fantastic of a person you are. You know, stop being concerned about what others think of you. You don't live in their heads, you live in your head. So if you're loving yourself and seeing yourself honestly, and in a divine way, can't nobody fuck with you.
Real talk. Thanks. Yeah, that's some really good advice,
There you go. Okay.
man.
That's how I try. That's how I try to step, and that's what I encourage everybody. Okay. Don't
Most
let
definitely.
motherfuckers try to fool you. Don't let these fucking fools try to fool you. They're talking shit. You know. You are the one. You let your inner be stronger than their outer.
Mm, real talk. That's some real talk. Yep.
There's there's several instances where I probably could have been shot, lynched, or beat up badly because of racism, where this protected me.
Mm,
Okay,
wow.
like I said, I got more stories, so maybe next time I'll
Yeah,
tell you some of them. Okay,
most
okay,
definitely, man. I'm down to hear them too. So I
okay.
really
All right.
appreciate it, man. Like a lot of wisdom right here. Like seriously, and just the work that you've done, and like, man, dude, like any
You just
accolades
pass it
that
on.
you receive is awesome.
Yeah, well, pass it on. That's the whole deal. You pass it on. Pass on the good shit. All right.
Most definitely.
You take care, and I'm out of here. All right.
Peace, man. Thanks again.
You
Black
bet.
History
Peace.
Rock and Roll Month featuring the brother right here, icon Dereck Higgins.
See ya.
Peace.